This is the second episode in our latest season covering cold cases across the United States, and the second in a two-part series. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are solely the interviewee's own. All individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. No one has been publicly named as a suspect or person of interest in Pepita Redhair's case. This series discusses intimate partner violence. For resources, please reach out to 800-799-SAFE 7233 or thehotline.org. This is The Fall Line. Last time, we began our coverage of Pepita Redhair, a 27-year-old woman who grew up in Crownpoint, on the Navajo Nation reservation in New Mexico. Pepita had a lot of dreams, maybe becoming an engineer or a teacher, or even pursuing aviation. She also loved skateboarding. It was a passion that she discovered as a child, and one of the ways that Pepita made friends and explored the world outside of Crownpoint. That was one of the things that she was known for, that and her adventurous spirit, and her bravery, and her warmth. After graduating high school, Pepita attended college in Crownpoint for a time, but she yearned to live in a big city. It was that need for adventure. So she headed west to Albuquerque, hours away from her family home. Despite the physical distance, she maintained close ties. Her family was tight-knit. Pepita talked to her mother, Anita, and her older siblings, including her sister, Shelda, all the time. In 2016, she met Nicholas Kay, and she eventually moved in with him at his house on Clemente Court in Albuquerque. According to the documentary series Never Seen Again, Shelda said that Pepita was very serious with Nick. She recalled that a few months before her sister disappeared, Pepita had even asked about traditional Navajo wedding ceremonies. Now, they hadn't made formal plans. She was just thinking about the future. But the relationship also had serious problems. Pepita's family told us that she was allegedly experiencing intimate partner violence, and that it was something that they believed may have been happening for some time. Local TV station KOB4 obtained body cam footage from February 6, 2020, showing police responding to their house after a disturbance call. In the tape, officers verbally noted marks on Pepita's face, though no one was charged with a crime that day. And attorney Darlene Gomez told the Gallup Independent about another incident in early March of 2020, one that hospitalized Pepita. Anita explained that things had gotten bad enough by late March of 2020 that she drove hours from Crownpoint to Albuquerque to pick up Pepita. But after a few days, Pepita told her family that she wanted to return to Albuquerque and to Nick's home, and she would not be convinced otherwise. So, on March 24th, Anita agreed. When they arrived at the house on Clemente Court, Anita said that she found Nick there, heavily intoxicated. Again, she suggested Pepita return with the family to Crownpoint, but Pepita wanted to stay. Then, around midnight, Anita told us that Pepita called an older sibling and said that Nick was mad at her. She was crying. The family says it was the last conversation they ever had with her. For the next 2 days, Pepita did not answer her phone, something that immediately worried her family. Those fears seemed to be confirmed on March 27th when a stranger contacted Anita using Pepita's phone. The man texted that he'd bought the phone for $30, and when the family reached out again to try and get more information, they never heard back. When Anita tried to file a missing persons report, she first tried to work with local Crownpoint police, but they redirected her to Albuquerque, where Pepita was last seen. She was then told Pepita was free to travel and that they should wait. Shelda also faced similar frustration when she tried to file her own report. They tried to speak with Pepita's boyfriend Nick, but said they weren't getting answers there either. According to police records, the family called in a welfare check on April 16, 2020, and then, 3 days later, Nick himself called the police. That was April 19, 2020, more than 3 weeks after Pepita's last confirmed contact with her family. It's where we left off last time, with Nick's call to APD. We need to walk through what happened after he called and the missing persons investigation began. But that also means backtracking to examine events that occurred around the time that Pepita disappeared. We'll start with that 911 call. There are two clips from different points that are important to play again. About 6 minutes in, Nick mentioned a third person who'd allegedly been with them on the 26th of March.
But this time she ended up leaving with both of us just barely met this guy. His name is Jeremy or Lermy.
Okay, so is there any of her stuff missing? Did she take anything with her when she left?
No. Whenever she left, she took whatever clothes she was wearing and my jacket. That was it.
Okay, she didn't take any like essential items with her or anything? Just
no, nothing.
Okay. And so she doesn't have a vehicle at all? So you're saying she takes the bus?
Yeah, no,
okay.
No vehicle, no nothing.
And then, about 10 minutes in, they returned to the topic of the man Nick mentioned before.
All right, perfect. That's very useful. Thank you so much. All right. And did she last tell you where she was leaving to exactly?
No, we got into an argument and she ended up leaving, but the day before, me and her ran into another native guy that was homeless, and he didn't have a place to stay, so I asked him if he wanted to stay over here and we all drink together.
Mm-hmm.
And that next day, she ended up leaving, and then maybe like 5-10 minutes after that, we got into the argument and she left.
The variations of the story we've come across either had Pepita leaving directly with or just after the man Nick mentioned, whom he called Jeremy or Laramie, and described as someone they'd, quote, just barely met. This was just one of several accounts that Nick would allegedly give about what happened to Pepita. We do know that APD eventually located and interviewed this individual. His actual name was Laramie Mike Begay, and he was a real acquaintance of both Pepita and Nick. The documentary series Never Seen Again, which aired an episode on Pepita's disappearance in 2023, provided more details regarding this connection. Laramie Begay told police that he'd last seen Pepita around March 10th of 2020. The documentary noted that he remembered the date because it was his birthday, and Pepita had given him a cupcake and a card as a birthday gift. This caused conflict because Nick got jealous. That's according to Begay's account as presented in the documentary. Our research, it shows that Laramie Begay's actual birth date was March 29, 1983, not March 10th. This creates some confusion about the birthday gift timeline. You'll hear more on that in a minute. But we do know that Nick claimed the three had spent time together on March 26, 2020. The implication seemed to be that Laramie Begay would have been the last person to see Pepita. We don't know if they actually left the residence at the same time, or if law enforcement sorted out other confusing aspects of the story. But law enforcement did identify something else that's vital. As KOB4 reported, police spoke to a number of witnesses that, quote, confirmed Laramie was not the last person to see Pepita that morning. Per the police interview tape aired by KOB4, Laramie Begay told detectives that he saw Pepita at, quote, Eubank and Central Avenue at the Walgreens, where, quote, Pepita got him a cupcake for his birthday, and then, quote, Pepita got on a city bus with two males that Mr. Begay did not know. Based on what came later in the interview, the likely date of this interaction was March 27, 2020. That's the same day that Nick told the 911 operator that Pepita left his home. Laramie Mike Begay, he cannot be re-interviewed by investigators. Sadly, he passed away on September 26, 2021. But, as we said, there are other people who apparently verified that he was not the last person Pepita saw, no matter which story of their interaction is most accurate. Among those other witnesses was a bus passenger who reported that a woman matching Pepita's description asked to use his phone to contact a friend because she was in need of help. He let her use his phone, and she sent at least one text that we know of. This was also apparently on March 27th. According to KOB4's investigation, that text was sent to a man named James, also known as Jimmy. He said he'd heard from Pepita on March 27th, 2020, when she texted him from, quote, an unknown number. He allegedly explained that, quote, Pepita asked him to pick her up from Coronado Mall, and that, quote, Pepita did not respond when he asked where she was. KOB4 reported that Jimmy said, quote, he would allow her to stay at his residence when she wanted to be away from her boyfriend, Nicholas K. However, quote, Jimmy told police he never picked up Pepita that day. He couldn't, he said, because he never heard back from her. When asked about Jimmy, Anita said that she'd never met him, but she was aware that Pepita sometimes stayed with friends. Nick also claimed to have received messages from Pepita. In his 911 call, he mentioned receiving texts that concerned him. Quote, and that evening, I tried contacting her, and the way that she was texting me was out of the ordinary. It wasn't stuff that she would say to me. We don't know precisely what those messages would have been, if they were received, or if law enforcement reviewed them. And there was another story that Pepita's family heard as well. As we told you, Anita received that disturbing text from a stranger who'd claimed to have bought Pepita's phone for $30. According to Never Seen Again, she contacted Nick to ask about that. And on that call, Anita said that Nick explained that Pepita had actually left his home while Nick and his father were gone, on a quick run to the local Circle K. The evidence that we've just gone through, covering the spring and the summer of 2020, the sightings, the text to Jimmy, the conflicting stories, all of this was pieced together later. The investigation did not begin until Nick's April 19th phone call. That's when APD issued what's called a be on the lookout for Pepita. But, as KOB4 later reported, that, quote, does not mean actively investigating Pepita's disappearance. The pandemic had fundamentally changed how law enforcement could operate. Per KOB4, Nick's first interaction with an Albuquerque police officer was over the phone due to COVID restrictions in its earliest days. KOB4 noted that the call lasted about 11 minutes, and the body cam footage they obtained showed it was conducted from the officer's squad car. Anita told us that Nick's house wasn't searched and his car wasn't examined. She believes that this too was due to COVID-19 restrictions. Nick has never been named as a person of interest or suspect in the case, so we aren't clear on what steps, if any, would have been taken there if not for the pandemic. But it certainly made things difficult for Pepita's family in other areas, with media and resources stretched so thin. It became clear to Pepita's family that if anyone was going to actively search for her, it would have to be them. Shelda said that the family posted on social media, starting a Facebook page to spread awareness about Pepita's disappearance. And that was just the beginning. As Anita explained to KOB4, quote, we set up flyers, we posted flyers, talked to people on the street, and on the buses, we put up those flyers everywhere. The Gallup Independent noted that the family spent hours walking down Central Avenue, visiting skate parks and skater hangouts, looking for Pepita. They hoped that they'd run into someone, anyone who had information. And, eventually, they heard something. In August 2020, the family was out visiting Pepita's hangouts again, flyering and chatting with anyone who was willing to talk. Per Never Seen Again, a few locals stopped to discuss a rumor that they'd heard. They said that they knew Pepita and Nick, and that they'd heard a rumor that Pepita had overdosed. Allegedly, that story had come directly from Nick. When the family tried to verify the story with him, they say he didn't respond.
But I don't, I just don't care, I just don't care what he said and what he did. I just wanted my daughter home, but I was lost in words. I was just devastated. I was just sad, emotional. I just didn't care. I just want my daughter back. So all this time, until a year ago, I had the courage to speak. And then now I'm rethinking it, and the way what he said, how he reported, it's my same stories I had. I mean, it matches my story. That is so ridiculous. and he's lying. That's all I'm going to say. Beyond that, I don't know what happened.
That wasn't the last tip Anita received from the community. According to Never Seen Again, a possible witness contacted Anita and said that she'd seen Pepita in City Park. There is not a park with that precise name, not that we've been able to identify, but Shelda went to the place with the closest name, City View Park. They didn't find her there. The family would eventually check other parks in the city, Googling again and again, but found no sign of Pepita. There was something else, though. Shelda told producers of the television show Disappeared that when she was searching the term City Park, she saw a Google Maps pin on a local hotel, though it wasn't actually called City Park. She thought that was very strange. So they decided to investigate the location. When they arrived, they saw troubling activity, people peering out of windows, men loitering around in vans, and speaking on walkie-talkies. Shelda explained that they were very wary of human trafficking and whether that might be a factor in Pepita's case. The New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres was interviewed for both documentaries, Disappeared and Never Seen Again, and he acknowledged that there is a human trafficking problem in New Mexico, but said he had not seen evidence so far that indicated Pepita might have been trafficked. However, he stated that law enforcement was actively pursuing all leads. When the City Park tip didn't lead to Pepita, Anita told us that the family and supporters also conducted searches of a mesa near the home where Pepita had lived with Nick. It was an area where a lot of trash was dumped, and a grid search was difficult. Though they made multiple trips to search in the vicinity of Nick's house, nothing was found. They did eventually discover, though, that another young woman who looked very much like Pepita was living in Albuquerque. And Good Samaritans, well, they've been calling in sightings of her. According to Disappeared, Shelda spoke to that young woman herself, and the young woman said that she'd been stopped on the street by strangers. It meant that any sighting that had been called into the family had to be re-examined. Months and months of work and time spent chasing tips. All of this, the travel, the printing, the time spent away from work chasing down leads, it came out of their own pockets. But they didn't give up. Anita began attending rallies and marches, and by 2021, Pepita's name began to appear in national news stories. This was partly in response to the nationwide news coverage of Gabby Petito's disappearance in September of 2021. Anita said that she saw a chance to garner attention for Pepita too. According to Reuters, Anita organized an October 3rd, 2021 rally in Albuquerque to seek justice for her daughter after Gabby Petito's disappearance gained global attention. At the time, Anita told Reuters, quote, "I felt like my voice wasn't important. My daughter wasn't important because she was Native American." The rally came days after another tragedy Anita's family faced, the death of Pepita's father. Per WBAL, he passed away on September 28, 2021. Anita told the station, quote, "He didn't get any closure. That was kind of the saddest thing as well. I promised him that we are going to find our daughter." For Anita, the initial media coverage, the coverage that she rallied herself, was essential in attracting attention to Pepita's disappearance. So many people in New Mexico had no idea she was missing, much less in the nation at large.
It's like a light bulb came on. A lot of people are missing, but it was never out like this. But now it's, it's out there. A lot of people are showing that 2019 people were missing, 1980, they're not found, few of them found, but now it's slowly getting out there. And that's what I mean. It's just for us Native American, our tradition is not to talk about them. So sometimes I'm reluctant to it, but I want my stories out there for her. I did rallies 2-3 times. The big one was 2021. And it was in October. A lot of people showed up, and a little bit I got stories. People came out. I knew her. She used to go to school in C&M. I knew her in high school. I knew her like this. A few people, but the last time they saw her was with Nick.
In November of 2022, more than 2.5 years after Pepita's disappearance, her case took another turn. According to KOB4's Beyond the Case investigation, APD turned over the case to the Attorney General's office. KOB4 reported that, quote, the APD detective was informed that the Attorney General's office would, quote, like to take over the investigation. For Anita, this transfer represented both hope and frustration. While it meant fresh eyes on her daughter's case, it also meant starting over once again, with investigators who had to familiarize themselves with years of evidence and leads. The case would remain with the Attorney General's office until April of 2023, when it would be transferred once more. Per the Gallup Independent, Special Agent Denise Billy with the Bernalillo District Attorney's Office told the newspaper that the case, quote, was recently assigned to her after it had been with the New Mexico Attorney General's Office and the Albuquerque Police Department. 3 agencies in 3 years. Each transfer meant new detectives, new case reviews, and more time passing without answers. Anita decided that she needed more help. So she reached out to a local private investigator, Quentin McShann. He's been conducting his own investigation for a few years now. In fact, he told KOB4 that his work has even extended into Arizona. But it's been difficult for him to follow leads that are years cold. And these are the leads that Anita wished had been acted on swiftly.
We don't get much help from them or anybody because I guess it's hard for them to find her or get in more information from anybody. And they, like I was told that all leads were exhausted. So everything just, we have to, as family of a missing loved ones, we have to do our own search, our own ground search, our own search, talking to people, doing awareness, but really nothing from detectives, attorney, nothing. But we have a private detective now. He's doing a good job. He collected a lot of stories, a lot of information about her. I know he probably needs money. That's why, sometimes, but one time I tried to give him 300 and he goes, no, it's okay. I'm not taking your money. I'm doing this for you, for your daughter. So I know I want to give him some money, but the tribe, they don't help us. So I don't bother, I only, ask if the 25th we're going to be south of Albuquerque. I request for some, gas money and some meal or search for like refreshment, drinks, water. That's what I request for, but I don't know. And then I buy my own flyers. I get it print at UPS and I pay out of my paycheck. And then between the months, we go to Albuquerque, buy my own gas.
Anita said there is limited money available for some things, like initial searches, but that's not something she was made aware of. So when the family decided to look for Pepita in areas around Albuquerque, they funded it themselves.
So I had to pay out of my pocket to have the cadaver dogs come out to Albuquerque. That was on west side of where Nick lives. It's a big old field. That's where we went and searched, but we walked around and that was the first time we didn't know what was, who to ask and all that. But after a while, we just go on the streets and pass out flyers with goodies. I usually get stuff from Sam's Club to put in, like candy, small soda, water, and a flyer. That's what we did all this time, all these years, but not lately. We haven't been going out there because I'm very financially stable. I'm not, very limited on my income.
While Pepita remained missing, Nick faced his own trouble. However, none of those troubles were related to her disappearance. As we told you last episode, per the Gallup Independent, his criminal record dates back to 2013. Charges include offenses like aggravated battery and DWI, but there are few convictions. In October 2018, he'd been charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. In August 2020, the same month locals told Pepita's family that they'd heard rumors of an overdose. Nicholas was charged with speeding, open container, and driving with a revoked license. In March 2022, he faced charges for aggravated DWI, battery, and driving with a suspended license. The most serious incident occurred in March 2023, when he was charged with aggravated battery with great bodily harm against a male relative. According to the criminal complaint, Nicholas allegedly choked his relative unconscious, stomped on him while he was on the floor, and caused injuries that included a large bump on his eyebrow and blood on his head. Per The Independent, quote, most cases were dismissed for failure to prosecute, according to court records. The March 2023 case was also dismissed in May when the victim failed to appear in court. When we checked New Mexico court records, we found 3 total convictions: a 2013 DWI and reckless driving from the same incident, and a 2016 driving while license suspended charge. All other charges, including 2 felony aggravated battery cases, were dismissed. Officials have never named him or anyone else a person of interest in Pepita's case, or offered a theory as to what might have happened to her after March 27, 2020. We reached out to the DA's office for comment on the case, but we did not hear back. Anita has continued on, despite the difficulty and the isolation. She needs support on multiple levels: social support, monetary support, law enforcement support. She needs tips, continued media coverage, and a bigger reward. She says this has fundamentally changed her and affected her mental health. She says people may not understand, even others facing cold cases, because each family is on their own journey. What matters most are the people who don't leave after the rallies, after the media segments and the podcasts, after the cameras are shut off, who check in and who ask how they can help. She and the rest of her family miss Pepita so much. The things Anita does every day, they remind her of her daughter, whether it's working in her yard or seeing kids skating in the park. She recalls moments with Pepita, like when she picked up her first skateboard.
One day we had skate park in Crownpoint. She was like 10 years old, 11. She was introduced by her friend. Guess they were skateboarding and she wanted to try. So we bought her a skateboard. And, I used to buy her different kinds, and it's getting expensive now, but she used to change the wheels for her. She started learning, and she just learned on her own and watching others, and that was her hobby.
So she knew how to build her own board.
Yeah, I just bought the materials and she does it for herself, and she throws on the floor there. She's on the road. Yeah, she was very funny, man. I missed her. I missed her so much. Like this past weekend, she says, Mom, I was cleaning my yard, pulling out weeds because the ground was wet, so it's easy to pull. And at the same time, I was using the rake and everything and shovel, and I just broke down. She always used to say, Mom, I'll do it. Go sit down, Mom. She would come out and take over, and I miss that. I mean, I never really thought this is going to happen. You know what I mean? Never thought I would suspect anything. I have respect for people, but along the way, I told him, sweetie, I said, when she came back with bruises and stuff, and I told her no, I said, you know what? Just stay away. He's not a good person for you. And alcohol is available there. You don't need that kind of life. You need to follow your dreams. You need to live right. You weren't raised like that. So I did my best, but she just went on back and she never came home.
At the time she was last seen, Pepita Redhair was 27 years old. Pepita would be 33 years old today. She's Native American and part of the Navajo Nation. She's 5'1" and around 140 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a black shirt, black skinny jeans, and black shoes. Pepita has several tattoos, including a dinosaur on her right forearm, a koi fish on her left forearm, a butterfly on her shoulder, and red hair on her leg, and a tattoo of a heart with an arrow on the inside of her bottom lip. Anyone with information about Pepita's disappearance can do one of the following. You can contact the Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office at 505-222-1101, contact the Albuquerque Police Department at 505-242-COPS or 2677. You can also contact Crime Stoppers anonymously at 505-843-STOP or submit a tip online via p3tips.com/531. There is a $3,000 reward in her case. To help Anita directly with the cost of her search efforts, please consider using Venmo. We are supporting her work, and we hope you will too. Anita's Venmo username is at Anita-King-86. You can also find a link to that in our show notes. If you would like to express your support for the active investigation of Pepita's missing persons case, consider joining an email campaign to let Bernalillo County District Attorney's Office know that you care. It's easy to participate. You can follow the link in our show notes to learn more. Next time on The Fall Line, we begin our coverage of the disappearance of Brian Vladeck Hassel, who was last seen in East Orlando, Florida in November of 2021. If you know of a case that should be covered on The Fall Line, there's a link to our case submission form in the show notes. Thank you for listening. The Fall Line is an independent podcast, and we appreciate listener support. It allows us to do research, obtain FOIA, pay our content advisors, and support and donate to the causes we care about. Our therapy fund is paid for through Patreon and Apple Premium subscriptions. If you try out the products we advertise, please use our sponsor codes. It really helps. And please take a moment to rate and review our show in your podcast app of choice. If you listen on Apple Podcast, please be sure to check your subscription to make sure you're set for automatic downloads so that you don't miss an episode. My book, Lay Them to Rest, is out everywhere. Find out more through the link in our show notes. The Fall Line is written, hosted, and researched by Laura Norton. Interviews by Brooke Hargrove. Engineered by Southern Gothic Media and Rachel Boyd. Content advisement by Vic Kennedy and Brandy C. Williams. Special thanks to Liz Lipka.